I wanted to add this to the start of the video. There are a lot of upsetting things talked about in this one, so just wanted to give that warning and on to the rest of the video. We are at day 6 of the Sarah Boone trial, and I still can't figure out how the jury will be able to look past the videos the prosecution showed yesterday. I felt that the best background right now was going to be this. This is the ad that actually got James Owens to join this circus. I mean, this is what got it. Now, with that being said, I do want to say I am starting late. I'm playing catch up. So if this comes out later in the afternoon than normal, I apologize. It is entirely my fault. I missed some emails. I had to do some things last minute that I was late on that I'm very upset about. I didn't sleep well, and I slept through my alarm. But we're going to get into it, and we got to talk about these jury instructions. Now, initially, there's confusion because the page numbers don't add up for everyone, and they're like emailing things around to make sure everyone's on the same page. Now, when it comes to covering these jury instructions, a lot of this is them saying an instruction and both sides just agreeing to it. So I'm going to do what I can. They're really breezing through them. And I did show some of the more interesting ones yesterday on my video in the background. So the defense is seeking culpable negligence as a lesser charge in this one instruction. But the state says there's no evidence of that in the way they're wording it. And it doesn't match the case. The defense says there is evidence of culpable negligence by leaving George in the suitcase, and that means there's evidence of it, and the court will include culpable negligence. And there's another part later with culpable negligence. Well, actually, culpable negligence, I think, is honestly the most interesting part of this whenever it comes up. For example, just immediately after, the defense is arguing against an instruction saying that the death of George Torres was caused by the culpable negligence of Sarah Boone. But the judge has to ask, how are you asking to include culpable negligence, but then you're objecting to the instruction to explain what that would mean? So the judge overrules them. So culpable negligence is in. State objects to some wording and changes how it is, and it ends up being voluntary intoxication is not a defense to culpable negligence or manslaughter. And Sarah is asked if she understood an instruction and she'd heard it before. And it's the statement about Sarah Boone's, I think it's her interrogation and like all the statements she made. And they need to decide if she did it freely and fairly. With the added last line by the state about the Miranda, that last line doesn't have to be read, but you can consider it when you decide if this was a freely given interview. Sarah says she's talked to her lawyers and it's okay. But then her defense disagrees with the wording. I think they wanted to have defendant changed to Sarah Boone, and it sounds like that didn't happen. Suitcase will be sent back. Sounds like the baseball bat won't, so it sounds like maybe the jury will be able to look at the baseball bat during, but not the suitcase. Verdict form, defense removed manslaughter and are only seeking culpable negligence. So the judge gets to confirm it. The defense is no longer seeking a lesser manslaughter. Instead, they want culpable negligence, which I believe is much shorter sentence than manslaughter. I might be wrong on that, but that's what they're going with. And I don't know if that works. Apparently, a juror might have seen a domestic violence event yesterday. They're going to have to ask him about it. Owens has a disagreement with the state about the way they're reading the text. He wants to know the exact ones so he can object now and all this. And the state's explaining that they don't plan to read them all and that Owens has it all. Because remember, they gave Owens a pile of stuff that might be used in the rebuttal. He's known what could be in there. The judge told Owens he can object at that time if something's read. Bathroom break. Judge doesn't want to highlight that it was a domestic violence event some jurors might have seen. Instead, he wants to just say it was an event and both sides agree, and they take a bathroom break. Man, that's a short first video, but a lot of it was flipping through pages and waiting for files to be gone around. It was a while on the actual stream, not a lot of info. Now, as for covering the text messages, I'm probably going to decide when I get there. If there's a lot of objecting, I'll probably have to put it in my notes. If there isn't a lot of objecting, what I might do is have a second window open and kind of tab through the different frames of the video and read the text myself. But I don't know how it was displayed. I did not look ahead. I don't know what I'm getting into at this point. Normally, my segments are I will watch a full part until I get to an actual break in court, and then I'll do that segment. I'm going to be breaking this up partway through these messages because they are long, and they do get to a list that I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to type out. I'm just going to read it from the video, scrolling through, and then I'll probably end this video and I'll continue with the rest of the messages section. So, the jury, they were asked, did they see anything that happened in the courtyard? One of them did. Everyone was sent out, and the juror who said she saw something says her and another juror were walking, saw some people gathered, and someone was talking about domestic violence. Now, I actually, by chance, happened to know what I think this was. Basically, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I believe. And I saw mention that there was going to be a public domestic violence rally outside of that very courthouse, unrelated to Sarah Boone, but at the same time as the trial. The judge asks, I just had a pop-up, hold up, I don't know how that happened. Oh, because I had to restart my computer again because it crashed. The judge asks if she knows where the other juror was seated because she doesn't know her name. She explains like her description. The state asks, did you hear more? Did you hear any speakers? No. Defense asked if it would affect her ability to be impartial. She said no. There was an approach, and they just brought in the rest of the jury, so I guess it's not an issue. The state's up. With the text is 108 pages, and I want to assure you right now we're not going to go through all 108 pages. He does skip a lot, but it's heavy. And the jury will be getting all of this, so they'll get to read the parts that aren't read to them. And I want to be clear, if I say it's from or to, it's a reference to whose phone. We don't know technically who had the phone at the time. Owner and Sarah are the same person. So it begins with notes that say 2/18/2018, 7:49, asking George not to be despicable to me, making more drink after he guzzled his and I shared mine. 3/8/2018. It is a Facebook notification about being in a relationship with George, sent from George's phone. It says it's from George to Sarah at least. 5/21/2019. He can still live here, correct? Or until I decide to finally get him out. If he doesn't change, clean up his act after tomorrow. And this was sent to someone named Melissa. 5/30/2019. From George's mother. Now, George's mother is her phone, right? So this could be George, it could be his mom, and the both are addressed on the phone. Where is my clippers in the gray box? To George's mother, Sarah says, dumpster. Next message, like you. Next message, so is your 2 shirts. Next message, no more Rick and Morty. From George's mom, okay. From Sarah's phone, Lucas cried when he saw the adventure fund was gone. Thank you. No wonder you're out. Fuck off. Next message, he's the one that broke it because you took it. Next message, wanted to go on an adventure. Next message, be proud. Next message, feel good. Next message, you made, this is in quotes, our son cry. Next message, cheese stick. Next message, Lucas. Next message, your kids. Next message, get the fuck out of my life and my son's no one spinster. Next message, good. Next message, 4. Next message, nothing. Next message, dumpster diver. That's what you are, and the rest of you. At this point, I thought she was getting racist. We'll see if that happens. You know, if I'm assuming I'm going to pick a title, it's going to let you know what happens. She says a lot more, but the prosecution skips some, and now it's Sarah to George's mom. Fuck all you. Next message. Your firstborn is a joke. Next message. Mean. Next. Selfish. Next. Get. Next. All of you. Later to George's mom. Get the fuck out of my life. Next. Lucas 2. Bad influence. From George's mom's phone. So this is from the phone of George's mom. Maybe it's George. I am, as you see, go drink your life away. From Sarah to George's mom, your kids are 2. Next, yuck. Next, shucks, I only have 1. Beat your 3 together. Next message is yuck. A little bit later, the owner of the phone, presumably Sarah, gross and all the time. Next message, gross. This is still going to George's mom. George's mom to Sarah, I love that guy. Next, I love that guy. Next, you're the one who kicked me out. Sarah replies, finally. Next, get your shot together and check me out in 2 to 3 months. That's kind of haunting, considering 3 months later he's dead. Next, unless I find someone better. Next, shit. Next, together. From George's mom, are you serious? Next, are you serious? I think this phone was double sending, or they were like the read receipts and weren't removed. Sarah says, that's what's next. That's what happens. Next message, no. And then we have George's mom saying, I'm helping out dad right now. Call you in a few. Sarah, can you help me put, Sarah questions, can you help me put, and there's a bunch of question marks, next out, next fuck, next off. George's mom's phone asks how. Next message is no problem. Next message is how. And I believe the next message again is no problem. So then we have a number not named in Sarah's phone. Damn, you can only talk when you drink and talking shit. So they're saying this to Sarah. Sarah says, stop calling, texting my phone. Next message, he's not here anymore. Next, and it's damn. The other number says, nope, NP. Means no problem. You didn't have to be a bitch about it. From Sarah, yo, I like you all. He's a dick and the sheriff just left. Sorry I couldn't text back. I'll always respect you all. Know that. He's not here anymore. And the next message just says, and I am a bitch and you are. 2. And the other message. Look, I'm not here to be taking shots at you. I never called you a bitch. I said you were acting like one. I'm not going to be here going back and forth on some childish shit. Have a good night. Sarah replies, friends forever. Thank you. Would love to chat sometime. Next message says, call his parents, I guess. That was all in a single day, that whole big segment there, because now we're on 5/31/19. From Sarah to George's mom. This is Sarah trying to get a hold of George. Tell George to call me. I want my things he took. I have his birth certificate and propane certificate. Until then, if he wants those back. Next message. And I have your, in quotes, art box. From George's mom's phone. Stop being petty. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine, I swear. From Sarah. You're a liar. I never can believe you from all the lies. You stop being petty and taking shit like you always do. Where am I at here? Next message. Another one bites the dust, George. Hope you're miserable like you've made everyone else. From George's mom's phone. I'm not lying. From Sarah. Lucas said he won't miss you either. Or is it Lucas or Luca? Either way, her son. I typed it and I either put S or didn't. When I get mine back, you'll get yours. Mom, George, I didn't take it. George then says, I'm coming over in a few to get my stuff. I'm coming with Jean and Melissa. Sarah says, go for it. Bring W. I think I read the whole thing. Maybe it was whoever. I don't know. From Mom George, it says, I don't have anything of yours. That's why I'm coming with them so they can vary that. Sarah says, I don't care. They're not going to babysit you because you're an asshole and got kicked out after being taken off the lease. George's mom from them says, they seen what I had in my hands. Sarah says, still don't care or believe you. I'm going to get Lucas anyway, so don't waste your time or mine. Mom George, this is from George, exactly. From Sarah, you were a visitor and a terrible resident, in quotes, boyfriend, too. Just go away unless you bring my stuff. George's mom, I don't have your shit, Sarah. I need my birth certificate. Sarah replies, I don't give a shit either. I worked for that birth certificate, voter's registration, and your ID card. Just because your name is on them doesn't make them yours, even paid for them. I needed you to be a man and take care of me, not beat me, call me names, make me feel like I'm not a person, not giving back until I have mine. From George, whatever, Sarah. Sarah then says, next step is restraining order. Know that you can come over here 100 times. Doesn't mean I have to open the door. Next one says, good one, George. Go away. From George says, whatever. Sarah says, it's been a great day without you. Will be from now on. From Mom George, you need to do. From Sarah, enjoy living with your parents at 41 with no girlfriend and lonely. Next message that says, it was inevitable just like it has been before. Now, the next part wasn't read in court, but I have to mention it because it was on the screen. It was an email Sarah sent, maybe to herself, that said, pay rent online, figure out bill amounts for Brian. So the same day, she is shitting on George, shitting on him, but he can't provide, right? She's getting money from Brian, or figuring out how much money she's going to ask for. And remember, this is probably on, I would assume, on top of the $1,000 a month in alimony. She got a lump sum settlement, and she has $100 a month in child support, so she needs more. And a minute after that email, just 1 minute after that email, Sarah to George's mom's number, did you take Lucas's sunglasses? Mom George response, OMFG, no, I did not. I hope it's clear. I know it's a little jumbled to go this and that, but Sarah's making an ass of herself. She has his birth certificate at this point. She admits having his ID. She has all of his stuff, but those identification documents belong to her. And remember, she also previously said her bike belongs to her. So Sarah just believes that everything belongs to Sarah. I think she believes George belongs to Sarah. So now we're at 6/2/2019. From the owner of the phone, it says, Mo, if George is with you, can you have him call me back, please? To George's phone, I beat you to the punch. Next one, do the dartboard with me. And the next message says, come. So Sarah is trying to get George to come over just a couple days later after all that. Sarah to Mo, I know you won't answer. Mo, tell him to come finish the dartboard with me, please. Sarah to Mo, I miss him. To George's mom, ask George to call me, please, when he gets a minute. Sarah to Mo again. Can you have George call me, please, when he gets a chance, if he's with you? Later, from Sarah to Mo, hello, can you please have George call me? Willing to give back. Don't know if he's there or at parents. Really want to see him. To George's mom, not pursuing after 12. Next message, ever again. A bit later, to George's mom, please call, come over. Next, I'll come get you. Next, come over, please. Next, I need a super hug. Next, hugs, please, need. Next, you. Next message is Sarah to Anna. He doesn't live here anymore. Call parents or Mo. This is after a phone call that we don't get to hear. Probably wasn't recorded. And at this point, Sarah takes 2 photos. We get to see the photos. The first is George's birth certificate, so we can verify she has it. Next is his birth certificate ripped up. Sarah sent a message to George's mom's phone. Look what you made me do. And it includes those 2 photos. So she is now destroying his things because he's not responding. George is away from her, staying away from her, and she's now destroying things he needs. And Sarah says, next, all up to you now, big boy. Next, or maybe your mom will for you. From George's mom, wow, that's really childish. From Sarah, but effective. From George's mom's phone, yeah, I can see what you're doing. Did Lucas leave? From Sarah, I'm watching shadows be gone for good, minus birth certificate. From George's mom, okay, cool. From Sarah, am. Next, nice. Next, you're not. From George's mom's phone, yes, I am. Next, you are not, though. From Sarah, to who? Your mom, brothers, not me. From George, to everyone. From Sarah, but me. From mom to George, I love you. From George's mom's phone, I love you. I'm not saying it's George's phone because she's also sending messages to his mom, as you can tell. And it's labeled his mom, but most of the time when I say George's mom's phone or Mom George or whatever, it's George she's contacting. From Sarah, I'm going out at 8. I'm getting dressed. I've given you since noon. Peace out, Boy Scout. From Mom George, I'm coming over with a handle. Next message just says, I was helping Pop all day cut grass. From Sarah, yay you, getting in the shower, then out, bye-bye. So George sounds like, if he's telling the truth, he was busy all day helping his father, and Sarah was having a breakdown destroying his property. Destroying his identification documents. Owen's asked to approach the bench now, and it gets overruled. From Mom George, I'm already showered. Next, dressed. Next, hello. Then the next message is from Anna to Sarah. You're rude as hell, but okay. From Sarah to Anna. Your dad is a POS, but okay. Next message. At least you know and will stop calling. Next, futile. From Anna to Sarah. CTFU. As you are a piece of shit. But that's God's business, not mine. Have a good day, Kokor. Since you like to switch up, I'll do the same. Don't text me back either, fake ass. Sarah's just making friends along the way. Now it's from the owner, so Sarah, to Philip. He's off the lease. Next message, the process has begun. To Mom George, tell your son he's not welcome here. Taken off the lease and bound. Worthless. Don't show his ugly, fucked up face around here again. Police will be called. Ask him if it was worth it. And riding my bike he has. Stay Hispanic. That's what you all are. And all becomes clear. People wondered, why did they bring that witness who really couldn't help Sarah? Because she's a racist in these messages. Owens knew it. Owens is the one that used the term uppity at one point in the little cross. I don't think anyone's shocked. Next message. And he can watch all the porn he wants from the, quote, phone Mom gave him. 6:14, Sarah to Mom George's phone. Wow, congrats. Blackouts and whoring. We wanted to see him. Hot house, 7 people. Mission to work on my bike. Repeat. Candy Crush. Fuck himself. Shit job. Repeat. So she is now shitting on George for trying to get his life together. He's riding the bike she gave him to do his job, and he's coming home and he's helping his parents, and she's shitting on him. He's not with her. She's destroyed his property. She wanted him out, threatened him, and then tried to lure him back in by destroying his things. This is raising a whole new light on those body cams we watched. When he says Sarah invited him over, this is the type of stuff she was doing. Now we're at 5/15/2019. This is Sarah to Melissa. Just an FYI, if my place gets effed up, I'm letting you know he's in jail. Thanks for the prompts. I'm at my ex's house. Please don't let this reflect on me as a tenant. You said to call the cops. I did. He's gone. We're both proud now. I consider you my friend. From Melissa. Why was he in your apartment? Also of note, I believe Sarah was saying he was off the lease before he was off the lease. At least from like the timing, it sounds like possibly. And if that's the case, she was lying so he wouldn't be there. Now the reason I said I'm going to be doing a split is because now it's notes, and I'm going to be just tabbing over and reading these as I go. So 614 X. This is a notes kept by Sarah. 614 X videos 1003A. Sarah Banks 53. Bank 613. Metro activation 612. Section 8 housing assistant 612. X videos 611 1120p Petite Ebony Bambino. Levi's 611, Hillary Clinton 611 1116p. Now, at first I thought maybe this was some sort of a tracking on the phone about what was being searched, but things aren't. There's notes in here. So this is from Sarah. So Sarah is tracking, it sounds like, everything he does, going through his phone history and keeping notes of what he does. which is creepy as shit. Levi's 6:11, Hillary Clinton 6:11, 11:16 p.m. So he's looking up Hillary Clinton at 11:16 p.m. and she's like, write that down, write that down. I dream of Jeannie then, now 6:11. X videos 6:7, 10:17a, filthy family, Craigslist, pets kitten 6:6, Candy's cat 6:6, Sarah K. Boone search 6:6, George Torres Jr. search 6:6, moped for sale 6:6, PS4 6:5, X videos 6:2, 6:6, 13 p.m. X videos 6:1, 12:43 p.m. X videos 5:31, 5:56 p.m. Who's Christine Facebook going to meet up, calling her beautiful? Said she thought you were avoiding her when down here. Said no, I was not beautiful. FB Nonchalant Quay, thanks for adding me. You are exquisite. 6:13, 5:51 p.m. Facebook messaging Camille 6:13, 9:42 p. Facebook Pamela Erickson sending pictures of yourself, telling her good morning. So remember, Sarah said she didn't know these people. Or no, remember Pamela Erickson, she didn't know them. Next is Crystal. Facebook Crystal, going to woo her, sweep her off her feet, going to change her mind. Luck is my middle name. Sent her pics, sent her kiss emojis, called her beautiful after returning to the convo, said you would pick up your brother, sent pics of beer, sent her struts, could have been, sent her songs, but not me. And before this, I'm going to say that I'm confused, right? And the reason I'm confused, and let me double check my notes here. So I'm looking at these notes, and we have dates that looks like George was not around Sarah. And these include notes of what George is doing. I don't know if I haven't listened to this part. I'll tell you if he mentions anything. I haven't listened to this part. I stopped so I could like come into it fresh when I read them. But for example, X videos 5:31, 9:56 a.m. So 5:31. 5:31 is in these notes. 5:31 is, let me find it here. What was going on? This is the day that George said he wasn't lying and he didn't take Sarah's stuff. And yeah, like it sounds like he wasn't with her on some of these days. Which adds a new element of it. How is she tracking him? Is she going, like, does George have, there's a possibility. What I'm thinking is George has what's listed as like George's mom's phone or his own phone, or maybe he has a phone at her place or a phone he keeps on him that only connects to Wi-Fi. You know, I know some people can't pay for service. They have a phone that still connects to Wi-Fi and can message. Maybe when he's like passed out drunk, she's going through it and going through the phone. So they're broken up and he's trying to meet up with women and she's calling it cheating. Right? That's what I'm wondering. But someone would have to, we would need all the papers to make a timeline. Maybe someone will do a video with a full timeline. I'm really curious. But let me continue. I'll go back to Crystal because I stopped partway there. Facebook Crystal, going to woo her, sweep her off her feet, going to change her mind. Luck is my middle name. Sent her pics, sent kiss emojis, called her beautiful. After returning to this convo, said you had to pick up your brother. Sent pics of beer, sent her struts, could have been me. Sent her songs, but not me. Messaged bunny kiss emojis, a continued convo. Sent puppy kiss emoji. Would like to take her out and see a movie. Told her about what we do in the shadows. Told her about what we do in the shadows. Would love to watch Creed 2 with her. Want to snuggle with her and eat popcorn. Sent heart-hugging animal emoji. Want to play a board game with her. Want FaceTime call. Call amazing. Messaging 3:30 a.m. 6:14 to 6:17, 2 days. Facebook Crystal liking all her messages. And there's a quote. Losing someone who doesn't respect or appreciate you is actually a gain, not a loss. You can't compare me to the next girl because there's no competition. I'm one of a kind, and that's real. below that, it says he's taken Lucas's ice cream money to buy beer, cigarettes that he'd pay back, never did. So it looks like now it's just a list of grievances. Took all of Lucas's Adventure Fund money. As, mind you, these are her claims. And said we owed it to him. Taken, lost my debit card to buy beer, cigarettes 3 times. Goes to buy cigarettes and buys himself whatever he wants, necklaces, charms, sunglasses. Came downstairs to make him breakfast. He's jacking off, watching porn, so he didn't have enough time to turn it off. And he had just started watching. Admitted later he'd been watching the whole movie. Sarah, they went by fast. He might not be reading all of this in court, but the jury's going to get all this, so I want to put it here. Something about it being like cheating, still looks at porn even after swearing on his children and parents. Stabbed me in the back of leg, having an emergency surgery, hospitalization, extreme pain, packing, unpacking, still to date, get tissue, getting removed, pile of bills. So here's another note. Hi, now that you're home, I'd really love if you take me out to a movie, or we could snuggle like we do and watch Creed 2, get some popcorn or pretzels, Reese's, maybe talk about kind of movies we like, or have a fun board game to play together. I know your favorite is Abalone. What do you think? I think these are messages he was sending to that girl. Maybe she's in his Facebook. Kind of hard to catch some of these. Because he's not reading them, so I'm trying to catch them as he scrolls. I always think about the other day how much I miss you sending me pictures of yourself throughout the day, sending me songs you wanted to hear I thought I'd like, but what I really miss are the kissy love emojis you would send just because I miss those, especially the ones with hearts. They'd always make me smile because I knew you were thinking about me. You do Crystal, though. Even asked her to FaceTime. You don't do any of these things anymore, but yet you wear your wedding ring and mine around your neck and tell me how much you love me. They skip ahead. I'm trying to make sure I catch it. Anything important? Yeah, it looks like Sarah's writing out a big speech, actually, to tell George. You don't have or ever respected or appreciated me, especially the appreciation part, only taken advantage of and disrespected me as a woman. Here's another you loved. You can't compare me to the next girl because there's no competition. I'm one of a kind. It's a deal. You made one point in a relationship think I was your no competition girl. I know I will be someone not yours anymore. You will never find another like me. I found everything on your phone, all your messenger texts telling Christine you want to meet up with her when she's here, calling her beautiful, thanking nonchalant Quay for adding you and calling her exquisite, telling Pamela Anderson good morning, and sending pictures at 12:38 a.m. messaging Camilla, then 2 whole days conversation with Crystal. How dare you? And send messages wearing my wedding ring. You're a cheating, lying scumbag. I will never trust you. Why don't you put your mugshot up? Or I will, since I have your phone and logged in. And tell everyone why you're in jail for the 3rd time. Let me know you beat your wife and she put you there because she couldn't take it anymore. So I'm starting to feel I was right. Because he was put in jail repeatedly for violating that no contact order, right? So they were apart. So she is going through so she has him arrested so she can dive through his phone, in my opinion here. And then he's talking to girls while they're not together, and she's using it against him. Mopeds, Section 8, I Dream of Jeannie, Then and Now, Hillary Clinton, all your Facebook shit, Levi's, look at all your stupid cats you were hoping would make me like you again. PS4 and all your porn, so disgusting. So yeah, she was keeping notes to use against him later. We're getting that I'm getting that revenge thing I thought with the photos and stuff, where it was all about getting revenge later. Looks like some repeats maybe here. I'd say a prayer for your kids and parents because you swore on their lives you wouldn't and whatever again, nonetheless knowing especially how much it hurts me. Um, Looks like Owens is reading some of this. Not Owens. The prosecution. I have it muted. Because they're paused here. I think he's reading the part where it sounds like she went through his phone while he's in jail. As I said, I'll go back and listen to exactly the parts the prosecution covers in case I missed anything for my next video segment. Let's see here. I want nothing to do with you ever again. I've become a different person since you've been gone with less stress, anxiety, and worry. I feel safe, comfortable, happy to know you're not here or seeing you at all. I can say, though, I do have heartbreak after going through your phone. Thank you for always proving me right. I knew when you told me your mom gave you one, you'd be back on your slimy ways. You will never change. I hope it's all worth it. All of it, including losing my debit card for the third time to buy beer, cigarettes, to put you back where you belong. I know for a fact you are not worth any of it for me. Is the reason George doesn't have a phone because Sarah destroyed it? Sarah said he didn't have a phone at the time of his death. Is that because Sarah took it and never gave it back or destroyed it? We know she'll destroy his things. I just can't believe after everything you've done for you, including all I did to get you out of jail, you do this to me. This is cheating. It's like you say you wouldn't as you like to say, you haven't stuck my dick in nobody. You would have already if she lived here or any of the other gross skanks you've been trying to. I mean, the thing is, if they were broken up during this time, and Sarah is literally threatening him with arrest if he comes near, but it's Sarah, right? Everything revolves around Sarah. She wasn't actually saying those things so she didn't want him around. She was saying those things so she could try to control him later. And it's completely, I could just imagine what her divorce paperwork is like. I've seen one page, like one note, and it was bad. I hope it all gets unsealed. Or the other gross skanks you've been trying to friends with. Eventually, you're going to sound one of your old ridiculous. Eventually, you probably send one of your old ridiculous dick pics. Only God knows what you've been doing on Instagram or POF. Have you ever done for me rather than me, rather causing heartache? I wish you'd try to change mine. Like you said, you would. Hers doesn't. She puts scar gel on her wounds every day and have permanent nerve damage where she can't sleep at night for being stabbed in the leg. She has been lied to numerous sheriffs about being beaten, has been arrested for fighting for her life. Does she have a baseball bat for protection against you? Has she ever been strangled? He's skipping a real thick here. Let me go back here. There's a lot. I mean, I could probably spend an hour reading this, and I kind of want to focus on what was in court, but I do want to mention some other stuff. Well, let's see. You've made me feel ugly inside. We used to have fun. Now it's dead. You're a heartless, selfish human. I'm just reading the highlights and the bold. You texted her in the morning and then came to my house? So, at above, I took care of Crystal, telling her all about you, what you've done to me, and that I put you in jail for the third time because of it. Or did he pass out? Did Sarah go through his phone, get him arrested saying he beat her so she could then continue through and do this? Like, this is not good for her. Even asked her if she wanted me to send her your mug so she could get those too. That's why she hasn't gotten any responses back. She wants nothing to do with you and doesn't want to hear from you again. Couldn't believe, like, I can't always remember I'm smarter, more resourceful, and brazen than you will ever be. Were you thinking you and she would have some kind of long distance relationship? Thank God I never married you. Oh, she doesn't like it when George called her a cunt. I did a video about Sarah. I did a video where I was trying to come up with the wording, like what people think about Sarah. Like what's in their head if they don't say it out loud. That was the word. I said it has to be. It's strong. That's what people feel. Like they don't like her. I guess Sarah doesn't like being called that word. No one does, but I just found it interesting. It popped out right there that, George. I think it's accurate with Sarah. Sue me. I don't like her. I think Sarah Boone is an without the murder, there's nothing redeeming about Sarah that I've ever seen. And you can have your sorry enabling phone when I get all my debit cards, time, money, and effort I've wasted on you back. Never truly yours. So that does sound like to me that Sarah kept the phone. All right, so that is the end of the notes section. So yeah, I'm going to go back and listen to it. But it seems like Sarah Boone may have gotten him arrested over anger about messages he sent while they weren't together. And if she did it once, do I think she did it multiple times? Well, she does like her patterns. She likes to say the same phrases, do the same things, make the same claims. I don't think this helps Sarah Boone. I see why Owens was starting to try to object to some of this, because this is bad for Sarah. So I listened back through the audio to make sure I didn't miss anything. I believe I read every note they read and more. But I have some more that was read to them, to the jury. So I'm going to read that here. From Sarah to Mo, 6/26/2019. Just wanted to let you know to tell George I found all his messages, kissy faces emojis with Crystal and other bitches on FB, along with all his porn after he swore. To me, he wasn't doing any of that anymore. I'm not doing anything more for him, and I will try to keep him in jail as long as I can. Cheating snake weasel. Ask him all about it, or have your parents next time they talk to him. I'm not anymore so hurtful after all I've done for him. He can rot in there for all I care. Next, and I will be there for the hearing next week and his arraignment. Next on both charges. Next, peace out. Fuck, aka Torres. Sarah then sent to Mo that note that I read part of in the last segment. It's very long. If you want to see the full thing and read it all, I don't believe he reads it all to the jury. You'll have to watch the court video. It's long. It covers the same things that I talked about. It's just combining it into a single note, essentially. 6/28 from Sarah to Mo. Just know I can do so much more damage than all of you put together. Know that. So then we have Janice to Sarah. The first part I decided not to type out. It's basically just saying George was late to work. We went to his door to get him, and he wanted to work the afternoon instead. Never showed. But I did want to share the end part, because it's very important. What happened last night? He had a black eye. He said it was new, because I asked him and told him to put makeup on it, and he said he had that taken care of. Did you two get in it again? He acted like when I told him he had a black guy, means eye. First, he didn't know what I was talking about. I guess he kind of blacked out. You can call me back if you want. So Sarah has just been informed that George's work knows he has a brand new black eye, and they can't get a hold of him. Next is from Sarah to George's mom. Janice just called me looking for George, and she's pissed. Congrats. 8/21/2019, George to the owner of the phone. I love you, my friend, my love, my queen, my everything. Owens wants to approach. We're going to find out soon what these approaches were. The jury instruction explains that they will get all the text message and we'll get to review all of them. They're getting a laptop with all of this information. So, again, the best way to view this for us at home right now is going to be reviewing the court footage. There's so many messages I didn't read that I didn't catch or I didn't think were relevant. But some of them are rough. So, I'm sure people will be slowly, frame by frame, going through and reading as much as they can. I will say this. I do want to say this. Give me 1 second. I know why they're doing it. I don't like that the court is giving out numbers that might still be active for these people who are the victims of Sarah. If you aren't watching, you might not know. They're showing the numbers. I know why they have to do it. I just don't think it should be given to the public. 1 second, though. Sorry, I am getting sick, by the way. You might be able to tell it in my voice. It's been getting worse. I have COVID tests somewhere. I'm going to look for them. But yeah, it's the numbers are given. You have to, I understand, in court, and I guess to the public, so that they can know it's not edited or whatever. But man, that family is going to get messages. Speaking of, the state rested the rebuttal case, and there was an approach. George's family is in the gallery crying. It's a rough day. It's a rough day in court. The jury's taken out. Owens speaks to the other lawyer at the table and Sarah at the same time. There is no sir rebuttal at this time. The judge asks Sarah Boone the questions we knew were coming. Are you satisfied with your attorneys and their strategy? Yes. She's had a conversation with him not putting on a sir rebuttal, and she agrees. The judge informs Sarah that Owens approached wanting a jury instruction that both Mr. Torres and Sarah had access to the phone. So this is where we come out why there were these approaches. They were, in my opinion, I have criticisms of Owens. I don't think he's this dumb. And I think he might have relayed this to the judge, for the way the judge is wording it here, that Sarah Boone demanded these objections. Because she wasn't believing maybe her attorney. I don't know. But he does explain that Owens approached wanting a jury instruction that both Mr. Torres and Sarah had access to her phone. The judge can't speak on the evidence, so he can't legally do that. But the state or defense can use it in their closing argument. I don't know why Sarah thinks this is a big defense, because everything that the state highlighted was obviously Sarah, obviously to other people, and sometimes trying to get a hold of George. When it comes to reading only part of it in court, he explains that the jury will get it all, and that's why we had the jury instruction about that. Sarah had an objection to the tone that the state read those text messages in, and the judge says it was benign and as flat a tone as possible to him. Sarah has no more questions, and to me it just sounds like the objections were to make Sarah happy. I mean, if you're Owens at this point, I guess you let her have it. I think he knows. I think he feels what's coming, right? They're figuring out timings for the day. Would they rather the jury work late, and they decide, yeah, instead of coming back Monday? So it sounds like they might try to. They might try to get us, maybe, or I don't know. We'll see. They're going to work till 9 tonight, at least. Jury brought back, excused until 1:30, and they explained the order of events coming. And the jury's gone again, and there's going to be a short break, and they're coming back. So this is just a filler segment, because I cut up the last segment. I should have just kept going, right? There's only like 7 minutes into this segment, but I didn't know how much was left at the time. I think I need to put a warning at the front of this video. I'm going to try to remember to. A warning that if you couldn't handle the videos, I don't think today is any better. If that makes sense. The text messages are rough, followed by his family in the gallery. It's a rough day in court. We are back, but Owens is not. Mr. Henderson is actually handling this. Maybe he's just better at this type of thing, so they're leaving it to him. Papers handed to both sides. It's time for jury instruction talks. Now, I'm not going to give you the exact jury instructions as we go. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the specifics. I'm going to go with what the arguments are. But when it comes to the exact jury instructions, if you're worried and you want to know exactly what they're said, whatever the decision will be in court in front of the jury at the end of trial today. So that should settle anyone who wants the exact wording. That's, of course, the best way to see it. Now, with that being said, there's some talk at first about what are the possible things a jury could find. Second-degree murder, manslaughter, and culpable negligence. The state wants the manslaughter on there. The defense wants the culpable negligence, so all three are listed. Deadly force definition, no arguments. Next issue is because one of the instructions says or threatening to use, because Sarah did use force. Defense has no issue with removing or threatening to use. The state argues Sarah used force first by zipping him, so there's a duty to retreat as a first aggressor. Defense says a different view of the evidence. They laughed. It was zipped. It was consensual. No force needed. Defense says it would be impossible to zip someone in there who didn't want to be zipped in there. State says defense is a straw man. We know the video. We know that she held him against her will. And basically what happens is because they are disagreeing, the judge says, well, then I have to read the second paragraph. If Sarah Boone was not committing any crime other than second-degree murder or manslaughter or culpable negligence for which the defendant is claiming self-defense or defense of others, and she was in a place she had a right to be, then the defendant had no duty to retreat. On the other hand, if Sarah Boone used deadly force at the time she was committing an aggravated assault, or if at the time she was in a place she did not have the right to be, then the defendant had the duty to retreat. And then he explains what a duty to retreat is, like how they would explain it to the jury. The issue is, the state says they have a little correction that the law does not require her to retreat if it would put her in danger of death or great bodily harm, and it would have increased her own danger to retreat. There's a defense objection. They don't like the mention of aggravated assault because Sarah isn't charged with it. So let me go back up here. So it says it wouldn't be self-defense if Sarah Boone used deadly force at the time she was committing an aggravated assault. So the defense doesn't even want that mentioned because she wasn't charged with it. The state says the reason they are asking for the special jury instruction because the defense and the defendant have admitted to the independent assault and or force. State says this is an aggravated assault, which is separate to the fingers coming out. That is an independent, imminent threat, according to Sarah. Sarah's testimony admits to an independent felony. State says they aren't going into the battery, but she did that too. She went to bed with him still suffering from the force she did earlier. The state starts reading case law. There's no circular logic. In this case, she can argue self-defense. The judge asked for a citation. He didn't see. The state looks for it. Judge is really thinking hard on this one. I don't know how, this is a lot of back and forth. I have a lot of notes here. Defense said they're trying to make an exception to the law that doesn't work here. Judge pointed out the case law the defense is using doesn't match the new form instruction. Defense repeats the statement. The judge asks, but where is it in the form instruction? The state directs the judge to case law. And at this point, basically, from my understanding, the argument that is happening, I have some notes here, is that the state says that Sarah Boone can't be charged with the assault due to the statute of limitation. So it's not that they don't want to charge her. They can't do it due to statute of limitations. The state says we all know by attorney she did it and she shouldn't be able to get away with murder due to a technicality that was no fault of the state's own. The purpose of what the defense is arguing is still upheld. They ask for the unique facts of this case to be considered. So Sarah delaying this trial might save her. The judge said he doesn't see an argument that she didn't do the assault. Defense says the first hurdle is that she has to be charged, and she's not charged. The state says this isn't an interlocking charge. The verdict could be not guilty of the assault, but then guilty of the second-degree murder. The judge says, but in this case, they are looking at both for charge. The state says, but in this case, it's two separate acts. And this is a purely legal technicality. He explains Menendez, which they are arguing into the last paragraph. So the judge is using Menendez for this, where there is no independent forcible felony. It doesn't say charged until the final paragraph. In the final paragraph, it says it's an independent forcible felony that they're charged with. The judge seems to not know what to do with this. State says, because the Supreme Court's conclusion says charge. State says go with Sarah Boone had no duty to retreat before using deadly force. So at this point, everything we argued doesn't matter. It's all gone. Basically, this whole argument they were doing is gone because they can't mention her assault as a reason that she's not doing self-defense. So the jury instruction is going to be a little more tilted towards the defense side because Sarah Boone delayed this trial so long that they couldn't charge her. Aggressor instruction has a disagreement. State's argument is before. Defense only evidence from Sarah Boone that she had nothing forcible done until he got out. Judge says there's a dispute of fact, so the jury has to decide. Defense wants on record that force at the time was striking the hand with the bat, and while the head was severely injured, it wasn't deadly. State says we're talking about the restraint in the suitcase that she didn't stop exerting. So there's a lot of references in this about, like, if you're wrestling someone and they tap out and you don't let go and you kill them, they're comparing that to the suitcase in this case. Judge asks if there was reputation evidence. State says no, just Sarah's opinion, but that's not enough. It has to be like a broad understanding. Defense thinks, flat out just says they need to think. Defense says there's evidence in a text message, but how is that reputation? It's a single instance and the defense concedes. So they weren't ready for that. Sides just want their objections reserved. Both sides just, they want it on record that they don't agree. Now they're reading orders and changes. Battered spouse syndrome instruction is up. I expected this to be rough. State's up. They suggest they change, just do a change to the defense's instruction. They'll accept it. The proposed instruction is, you have heard evidence that Sarah Boone suffers from battered spouse syndrome. If you find the evidence that Sarah Boone suffered from battered spouse syndrome credible, you may consider this evidence to assist you in determining whether a person in Sarah Boone's circumstance would reasonably believe that such force was necessary to defend herself against the unlawful force by George Torres. Like other witnesses, you may believe or disbelieve all or part of the testimony about battered spouse syndrome. Defense agrees. What is this here? Something about withdrawal. Oh, this next up is withdrawing from physical contact. There's some confusion about what the state wants. Physical contact includes any restraint on George Torres's movement, and the defense is good with that. Next is the state asking for causation. They said the bear was poked because when they asked the expert about cardiovascular situation that George Torres had, remember he had like an almost blockage, and they're trying to they're trying to tell the jury to almost. I'm not exactly sure what this would be, but it sounds like so they would just know not don't consider it. Maybe I'm not sure. Defense objects and says this is just making things more confusing, and the state withdraws. That's all. Judge is reviewing. Merging it all. He says, how about 130? The state, I think, said, how about 120? Judge says, see you at 120. And at 2:07, so you have an idea of when I'm recording this, I flipped ahead to see how much I'm behind, because I know I'm still behind for the day, and they had just gotten back. 2:07. So I don't know what the delay is. I'm excited to find out, though. I am back. We have another section. It's still a very rough day in court, very emotional. There was a big delay because the judge had typos he made to correct. State points out something was left in that it shouldn't be. The judge says they'll fix it. The state wants to proceed while it's being actively fixed, but they can't because they want the jury to have the instructions in their hand while they're going through them. I mean, honestly, that makes sense. Owens is asking what microphones are on, and asking, making sure what he can do. Can I have this? And the state's, no objection. He wants his tripod, his enlargements. They have no problem. The state actually uses some. A little spoiler. That probably made Owens mad. There's approval to stay until 10 tonight if need be. Might have to come back Monday if they go later. The jury's brought in. They are reading the jury instructions. I'm not going to transcribe and reread all of these. I will say that the camera was on Sarah Boone's face, and it's always interesting to see her emotion. Or in this case, it seemed lack of. It was very just numb at this very moment. I will be honest, for most of this, I was listening instead of watching, trying to get my fingers some rest. I know I mention them sometimes, but part of the reason I'm not transcribing better, in my opinion, is because they hurt. And just to explain it real quick, because I don't think I ever really did, I have very I don't know how to put it. They're like hypermobile joints. Like, look at that. And if I type too much, and like especially if I'm clicking around and stopping and starting, and I can't like just get into a rhythm, they kind of lock up sometimes, and it hurts. So I'm doing the best I can, and I just want to apologize. I don't like. Sometimes I miss things, and I realize later, just small things, but I don't like missing it. With that being said, someone's phone went off during the jury instructions. And at first, the judge is, angry, please silence your phone. That's fine. It went off. It's not okay. But like the judge's response, I'm like, yeah. Then it got louder. And that's the most angry I've heard the judge. He yelled, screamed, I would even say. And they got kicked out. And they had to reread the whole instruction again. What a time. What a bad time for a distraction during a jury instruction. Both sides' lawyers are still missing pages of the jury instructions, and it will be corrected according to the judge. The defense closing arguments. Again, it's not going to be an exact retelling, but I'm going to tell you enough. And he says this is a box, and they have the suitcase laying on the ground, so the jury has to. I think I know the concept here. We don't get to see the jury. It's on the ground, and my guess is the jury has to do this. Like they have to physically get up and see it, and I think that is an attempt to really get it in their minds. It's 28 by 20 by 8/7/8 inches. Just to clarify, because I know in one video I said 20 by 20, and I heard that. I thought I heard that, and then Court TV's chat, the Court TV actual person actually said 20 by 20, and I'm like, I don't know. Well, there we go. It's 28 by 20 by 8/7/8 inches. George Torres was zipped up in this box. George Torres took his last panic breaths in this box. The medical examiner explained to you that each breath that he took in there was less oxygen in this box. Box is used a lot. George Torres was murdered in this box. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself and my trial partner, we thank you for our attention to this most important of trials. We now have the law in this case from the judge. This is what our duty is to follow, and let's have a discussion regarding that law that has just been read. So he's going to start going through the law. I wrote some of it out, but it's important. The first section of note is introduction to homicide. But this being a legal document written by a bunch of lawyers, you have seen in the last 2 weeks arguing with each other, pay careful attention to the ands and the ors. Remember, if there's an and, it has to be all things. If it's an or, it just has to be one of those. We come to the first section on justifiable homicide. It reads, the killing of a human being is justifiable homicide and lawful if resisting an attempt to murder or commit a felony upon the defendant, or to commit a felony in any dwelling house in which the defendant was at the time of the killing. The section is completely inapplicable because George Torres was zipped into that suitcase. So he's saying right off the bat, it is not justifiable homicide. He couldn't commit or attempt to commit a murder on anybody. He couldn't even scratch his own head while he was trapped in that suitcase. Next is excusable homicide. Here we have several paragraphs. The killing of a human being is excusable and the law about it. When the killing is committed by an accident and misfortune in doing a lawful act by lawful means with usually ordinary caution without any unlawful intent. The problem in this circumstance is that she took the law into her own hands. Her testimony is that when George Torres was in there, he was laughing and giggling and they were joking. Then he complained he couldn't breathe. That is when she said she wanted him to stay in there so he could feel uncomfortable, so he could feel her grievances. That is not lawful. That is not the use of ordinary caution, and that is not applicable in this circumstance. Or when killing occurs by accident and misfortune in the heat of passion upon any sudden and insufficient provocation, George Torres couldn't provoke anything from his circumstances. George Torres was confined to this box. Or when the killing is committed by accident and misfortune resulting from a sudden combat, if a dangerous weapon is not used and the killing is not done in a cruel or unusual manner. This fails on 2 counts. There was no sudden combat. Her words were laughing and joking. We were all having fun, but she decides it's going to get a little extra real for George Torres. And it fails on the 2nd count because George Torres was killed in a cruel and unusual manner. Next is the main charge of second-degree murder. To prove the following 3 elements beyond a reasonable doubt, it is important to stop right here. This sentence is telling us that it is to be proven in order for the crime of second-degree murder for the defendant to be found guilty. We have been hearing all kinds of facts for almost 2 weeks of trial, but these are the 3 facts that need to be met to be found guilty. The state has proven second-degree murder before all doubt, and the evidence is overwhelming. But I will cite 1 fact for each element to prove that element beyond all doubt. George Torres is dead. We have a stipulation that agrees to that. The death was caused by Sarah Boone. By her own words, from the time this case began until she took the witness stand a few days ago, was consistent about that one statement. She zipped him up. She didn't zip him out. She refused to zip him out. So basically what they're saying, the one statement Sarah Boone has ever been consistent with, she put him in, she didn't get him out, and that's enough. The unlawful killing of George Torres was an act eminently dangerous to another without regard for another with a depraved mind. The law tells us what an act or depraved mind is. Act is a series of related actions arising from and performing pursuant to a single design or purpose. The act is eminently dangerous to another, demonstrating a depraved mind if it is an act or a series of acts. A person of ordinary judgment would know it's reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily harm to another is done from ill intent, hatred, spite, or an evil intent, and of such a nature that the act itself indicated indifference to human life. Her conduct fixed all of these, and if there was a scintilla of doubt this was not the action of a depraved mind, I point to you, and he shows the first video of George Torres in the suitcase, begging to get out and struggling. At this point, the video mutes, the camera turns to the gallery, and what it appears to be, at least to me, I would assume, George Torres' mother, rushing out of the room with family following. Then it goes into Sarah. Sarah is just not seemingly caring, and she's just writing notes on her desk with a blank expression on her face. That is, that's a big deal. And it comes up later, as you would imagine. We know this isn't the first time Sarah has considered killing George Torres. But I don't know if I caught this. The exhibit removes a scintilla of doubt the depravity of her actions. We know this isn't the first time she considered killing George Torres. Then he shows a message. 1/13/2020, about 1 month before the murder. It's the one that includes, I'll get rid of him. The law specifically tells us the intent to cause death isn't necessary. He bypasses every single lesser charge because the law instructs she is found guilty of the highest offense and that the evidence supports. So he's not even arguing what manslaughter is or what the defense wanted. He's not arguing any of that. And I think this is a bold move. I don't know if this is, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to help. Because the law says you have to pick the highest offense. She meets the criteria. And I think that was, it took me, I expected him to go through all 3. Maybe I'm wrong for that. That took me aback a moment and made me really go, well, I mean, if you're that certain, you don't have to worry about falling back on manslaughter. Because the state wanted manslaughter in there, right? So they aren't worried about falling back on it, or at least think that presenting it this way is better. State, of course, remembers they know that the jury has an instruction for manslaughter. Voluntary intoxication explains how being voluntary drunk isn't a defense. Next is defenses. First is a justifiable use of deadly force. It is a defense to the crimes of second-degree murder, manslaughter, and culpable negligence if the actions of Sarah Boone constituted use or threatened use of deadly force. The state must prove Sarah Boone wasn't justified to use deadly force. The law is, Sarah Boone was justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force or threat of force was necessary to prevent imminent death or greater bodily harm to herself. Sarah had no duty to retreat before using deadly force. In a few moments, Mr. Owens will rise and show you this. And this is where I think Owens probably started to get mad. He holds up the photos Owens is going to use, the photos of Sarah Boone's injuries and the smashing of the TV. He'll talk about curtain rods, talk about black eyes. He'll talk about him being an awful boyfriend. And that doesn't change the fact the defendant is not entitled or justified to use of deadly force because you must take into account the circumstances of when that force was used. The appearance of imminent danger must have been so real that Sarah Boone actually believed the use of deadly force was necessary. Moreover, to justify the use of deadly force, a reasonably cautious and prudent person under the same circumstances would have believed the use of deadly force was necessary. No reasonably prudent or cautious person would believe a man who could barely fit into this box, who was incapable of movement, begging for his life, suffocating, would need deadly force used against him. Justifiable use of deadly force crashes like a house of cards. However, the use of deadly force isn't justified if you find Sarah Boone provoked it. Her testimony on the stand: great day, games, dogs, hide and seek. She zips him up, still laughing, and then George asks to be unzipped, and Sarah Boone decides he should suffer. She provoked. In her own words, they were laughing and playing before he wanted out because he couldn't breathe. The threat of force asserted towards the defendant was so great that she reasonably believed that she was in imminent danger of death or greater bodily harm, and had exhausted every reasonable means to escape the danger other than using deadly force on George Torres. He couldn't exert anything. He couldn't even exert his arm out of the suitcase. Owens objects. Of course. Objection overruled. This is of no help to the, like, I don't know. I don't know what he was doing there. My guess is maybe Sarah's sitting there demanding some of the objections. It seems like he's been doing a lot more of what Sarah wants at the end, because I think he's just, Hail Marying it. In good faith, Sarah Boone withdrew from physical contact with George Torres and clearly indicated to George Torres that she wanted to withdraw and stop the use of deadly force, but George Torres continued to resume a threatened use of deadly force. George Torres never got a chance to do anything. George Torres was never able to mount any aggression. The law tells us that physical contact includes any restraint against George Torres' movement. Next is talk of what Sarah thought was reasonable. He said this will be a chance for the defense to air grievances about Mr. Torres. But those grievances won't change the law. If you find at the time of the alleged second-degree murder, manslaughter, or culpable negligence, Sarah Boone knew that George Torres had committed an act or acts of violence, you may consider that in determining whether Sarah Boone reasonably believed it was necessary for her to use deadly force. You may take into account the physical abilities they have. Now is a special instruction on battered spouse. I've read this one before, but it's basically saying you heard battered spouse evidence, you may consider it. If you believe she suffered from it, you may use it to help determine if a person in her position would reasonably believe such force was necessary to defend herself from the unlawful force of George Torres. You may believe or disbelieve any of the testimony regarding battered spouse. We heard from 3 experts. Battered spouse is not a license to kill. The fact he did things to Sarah Boone, got arrested, restraining orders, doesn't mean she walks around with an ace in her pocket. It doesn't mean he did those things that for the rest of time she's a battered spouse and she has the right to kill him or make him suffer or punish him or make him feel uncomfortable or decide he needs to be confined in a box. Next instruction talks about the imminency of fear. The testimony might be hard to understand from the experts. And when trauma is involved, other factors have to be ruled out. Before we can consider battered spouse, other possibilities must be considered. Possibilities include alcohol abuse. Dr. Harper should have listened to Dr. Brandon's testimony because he completely undercut her testimony. Dr. Harper relied heavily on the words of the defendant, who was abusing alcohol at the time of these events. Then you heard from the expert from the state. Her opinion was more straightforward. Other possibilities have to be ruled out. The fact that at the time of the incident that they were laughing and carrying on, the trigger wasn't domestic violence or some threat. The defendant's own words were him wanting to get out and that reminding her of what he had done. That isn't an imminence of fear. That is a reminder of bad things a person has done. Even if you believe she was a battered spouse, it doesn't save the day. Even if you believe she was battered spouse triggered, that's what he said, doesn't save the day. It still requires an imminency. It gives you another thing to consider. Basically what he's saying, and there's more words he used, that even if you think she was a battered spouse and triggered that day, that just gives you something to consider. It doesn't give her a get out of jail free card. We know from the video there was no threat because George Torres never got out of that box until the next afternoon. And then they show the video of Sarah coaching George on what to do. It's the one that looks like a like a hostage video. He says, clearly George is dominating the defendant. Clearly George Torres is dominating the defendant. Clearly George Torres is the one telling the defendant what to do. Clearly George Torres is the one calling the shots at, and he gives their address. Are we so sure George Torres wasn't the one suffering from battered spouse syndrome? Now on to justifiable use of non-deadly force. Similar to deadly force instruction, this was not a case of non-deadly force. George Torres lost his life. The medical examiner described how he died as oxygen dissipated in that suitcase. We heard opening statements by Mr. Owens that the threat was in that magic 9 minutes between the video of her torturing George Torres and her follow-up video where she moved the suitcase, and then they played the second video. He said, you can hear how loud George Torres is on the 11:12 video. But now, roughly 12 minutes after that time started, we see that the makeshift coffin that he is in has been moved. His voice is now softer. The life is draining from George Torres. It is evident in that video, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is evidence that there was no threat in the magic 9 minutes. That was not recorded. There was only George Torres in this box, slowly being killed. Next, we come to the weighing the evidence. This instruction tells us it is up to you to tell us what evidence is reliable. You should use common sense in deciding what is the best evidence and what evidence should not be relied upon. When considering the evidence, you may find some of the evidence not reliable or less reliable than others. You should consider how the witness acted as well as what they said, something you should consider. Did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know about what was testified? Focusing on the defendant, absolutely. 2 people walked in the front door on the 23rd and only Sarah walked out alive. Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? This is an emphatic no. The litany of her intoxication and versions of events is evidence of that. Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? I would submit she wasn't. Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? Clearly. I like that. Yeah. Does the witness testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in the case? I would say largely no, because on the issues if George Torres threatened her, as she claims, we know the answer is no. From forensic data, the item itself, did the witness at some other time give a testimony inconsistent with what she gave in court? In regards to the defendant, it is almost more appropriate to ask, when did she give a consistent statement? You listen to her version of events on the 911 call, body cameras, first interviews with law enforcement, interview the next day, and new details come out and change things then. First, she was never intoxicated, then she was intoxicated. She admits the fact that he attacked me. It was a great day. They were doing great. Only stress about jobs. 4.5 years later, after the fact, it's time for a new story. The facts do not change. The videos do not change. And in any version she has given, it adds up that there is no doubt she is guilty of murder. Do you have any doubt of the defendant's guilt when she described using that baseball bat to hit George Torres in the fingers in the suitcase when he attempted to save his life? Do you have any doubt when she was given how many versions of events? Do you have any doubt hearing the testimony of her neighbors about the loud crash? Any doubt after the medical examiner testimony? Any doubt after watching the videos of him being murdered and her laughing about it and talking about the fact he cheated on her? Any doubt after seeing the text messages on her phone? After seeing the videos of how she controlled and manipulated George Torres? And if you say, I still have doubt, then the law asks you, is that doubt an element of doubt a near possibility, speculative, imaginary, or a forced doubt? I submit to you that the idea that she had to do it because she's a battered spouse is an imaginary doubt, a doubt born from the imagination of Sarah Boone. It is not a reasonable doubt. But if you find yourself trying to think of some way Sarah Boone isn't guilty, that also isn't a reasonable doubt. That's a forced doubt. I am confident when you read those jury instructions and apply the law to the facts in this case, you will come back with a verdict of second-degree murder. Thank you. So now, afternoon break. And Owens has a motion. Sarah Boone is entitled to a fair trial and has a right to be, and that right has been compromised here today. He doesn't know who put the 2 detectives on the front row with the Torres family, the family of the victim, but they had to have known to tell them the suitcase video that had been around for 4.5 years was going to be played during opening statements. The state attorney's office or sheriff's office or victim's advocate had to advise them that if they couldn't take it in front of the jury that is trying to decide the case, they need to get out of the courtroom. Now, what happened here today should not ever happen. There should be safeguards in place. There is no room for this after 2 weeks of a murder trial for something like this to happen. One of the Torres members of the family audibly expressed during the suitcase video some kind of emotional reaction. I looked back and he or she was bending over in agony, physical pain. The physical pain followed the audible announcement. You can't unring that bell. That is their responsibility to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen, especially when you know they're going to show a video and the family of the victim is on the front row. I have never heard of such a thing. I ask for a mistrial. State says, I have never heard of such a request. The victim's family has a right to be here. They were advised as to what would be used in closing arguments. I can't make a decision for the victim's family of homicide survivors whether or not they think they can handle it. He or she clearly couldn't. I believe the appropriate thing was done. They left the courtroom. But again, to say this is intentional sabotage or the accusations that continuously are being made are unsubstantiated, and it doesn't warrant a mistrial. People get warned. Sometimes they misjudge their own emotions. I don't understand what test we are expected to run on homicide survivors. The motion should be denied immediately. Motion is denied. So, how do I feel? How do you feel? I mean, this is the closing argument, right? A lot of people were really happy with that rebuttal. For a lot of people, it gave them faith back in the prosecution. At this time, I liked their closing. I feel like maybe they could have said something about how she has a pattern of abuse using the same terms and matched it back to terms she said in the videos. We have videos of her like saying certain things over and over, and other than that, I think it was good. I think they have a strong case. But now I guess we get to see Owens. I think a lot of people hate Owens more now than before after that motion for a mistrial. The chat is blowing up. So I guess we'll be back with the defense. We are back. I was trying to just do a whole segment. I wanted to go through the entire defense and the state's rebuttal. My fingers hurt too much, so we're going to go through part of the state's rebuttal, and then I'm going to record the next half after this. Just know these aren't my total thoughts through the end, right? But it'll be in the same video. I see Owens' tripod is set up. Owens asked the audience to have an instruction given to them, and for the state to give Mr. Torres' family an instruction. The Torres' family who had the outburst isn't coming back, that member. The judge warns the gallery. Other members of the Torres family are present. The defense wants to split their closing between two attorneys. I mean, I'm just going to say it. That'd be more interesting for the movie, right? It didn't happen, it doesn't seem like. So, maybe they just agreed it was a little weird. As the jury comes in, to me, at this time, at this moment, Sarah's trying to smile, but she looks defeated while doing it. I went back multiple times, and there's a little reflection like under her eye. Now, maybe I'm misseeing it. Could be makeup, but maybe she's been crying and didn't wipe the tears enough. You can be the judge if you take a look. It's right before everyone sits down when the jury comes in. So now we're at defense closing. Owens begins by introducing himself, Tony Henderson, and the girls, which is a yikes to me. I gotta say yikes. I think he's trying to be personable in his own way, but it doesn't come off as that. They're from Milton. He says the location they're from. He loves talking about locations. We know that. Kevin Beck here is from New Mexico, the defense team. Well, we feel confident we'll be able to show you why she is not guilty. Owen says he will take his time. He has notes and he isn't the most organized. He sure takes his time. This is a warning. This segment's long. He will show exhibits and videos at the end. They will try their best to help you make the right decision. Milton is a small town. Objection. Relevance. Overruled. 7 miles away is another town called Pace. Very small town. We didn't know what to expect coming down here to Orlando. Objection. Relevance. Judge says he'll give him a little bit more time for the intro, but we need to get into it. Owen says, small town, good people. We have been down here 3 weeks. We didn't know what to expect. We were surprised. Objection, improper argument, approach, objection overruled. All I wanted to say is we've been here. It's been treated with respect and hospitality. We appreciate that. And then he says he's going to do, and I want to quote this, do some reading and some talking. So I'm starting to get a vibe. Which this whole case is about. He's really trying to do like a down home type of like personable approach. Or does it? We'll get there. Justifiable use of force is a legal defense in Florida. As citizens, the law decide to protect us from defending ourselves, to protect us from potential attack. You are the only ones who will be able to look at this critically and objectionably, unlike the state attorney. Objection, improper argument overruled. The law in Florida gives y'all the power and authority to do that. The state attorney can't make the decision. They try to influence you. We are going to talk about some of the things they did here in this trial, some of the things they said. Objection, approach, objection overruled. They got their side position. We got ours. We are going to talk about justifiable use of deadly force, but either way, you rule it justifies her behavior and the result is not good. Now, I don't believe there is anybody. Objection, overruled, approach. Owen at this point looks up, and then he looks down and clasps his hands almost like in prayer. That's the way I can describe it. Owen says, I think you will find, considering the evidence in this case, there is no doubt Sarah Boone is a victim, that Sarah Boone has been traumatized, that Sarah Boone is still traumatized. The reason for the trauma is George Torres. From the positive about the man we've seen on the video, the positive, Sarah has testified to the violent monster he becomes, and I mean monster. It was repeatedly. And what happens the next day, I don't remember. I was drunk. I don't remember. This is the gaslighting this young woman, vulnerable woman, with nobody. She's starving for love, love, sees the good in the man. It was good, but every day was on the balance. Every day she had to live her life day in, day out. Dr. Harper, Dr. Brandon talk about the trauma. Again, this is not exact. I'm paraphrasing some of it. Dr. Harper talked about veterans who had treated for PTSD. She spoke about veterans who have been to war. People in wartime or police officers get PTSD with the bravado of, I'm all right. You got to spend time with them. You've got to do PTSD testing. We have all experienced some trauma. We've all lost loved ones, and it's awful. You are in shock. You can't sleep for days, but eventually you have to go back to work. You take weeks off. Life has to go on. Go back to work. Kids are at school. Time heals. These veterans that come back get their semblance of normalcy, and time heals. Overcoming a death or divorce, time heals. Sarah Boone had no break. Learned helplessness, just giving up. They broke up in about 2 days. She would text him, call him, just learned helplessness. It's in the manual, but learned helplessness is in the manual, but battered spouse syndrome is not. But she suffered from PTSD. That is a mental disorder. You aren't in your right mind. It's repeating itself. When you look at this law, that is what you have to apply, whether her conduct was reasonable. He has to go back to the defense stand at this point for notes. So he has to actually leave in front of the jury, go back to the defense stand, can't find his notes, looks for a while, goes back to his desk, back by the jury, starts reading some notes. It's not exact because I'm not quoting it exact here because I'm even trying to, because he's reading a written statement. So there's a lot of long-winded extra verbiage. That's the way I'll describe it. If you've listened to him, if you listen to this now or later, you'll understand what I mean. Sarah's learned helplessness. Repeated cycle caused Sarah to be trapped psychologically in that relationship. Due to the abuse, she had a reasonable belief of harm in her state of mind. George Torres had a history of abuse against her. The video of the suitcase shows a trauma response. She acted out of a sense of preservation, not malice. I'm going to have to try to have you understand. Sarah Boone being psychologically broke, her misguided attempts may have been self-preservation but not murder. Imminent danger and her response reacted to that belief. Long-term domestic violence. Owens has more notes he's flipping through. First expert talked about trauma, and if you can't escape from abuse, you get coping skills. It changes behavior and thinking. You're thinking of fear and what to do. Dr. Brandon says it's about that person's perception. Sometimes they self-medicate with alcohol or drugs. Sometimes they suffer from anxiety. Basically, he said trauma become terror. We don't know what is going to happen. He might have a great time, but depending on his mood, she tried to placate him. Dr. Brandon said it takes time to get them to trust you in investigating someone, their perception of danger, what a reasonable person would do under their perception of danger. The acts, while tragic, it is in reactionary response to sustained trauma, a desperate need for survival, but battered women do things to keep the peace from time to time. When they feel like they have a small amount of power, they may vocalize it to their abuser. Sarah Boone isn't perfect. She would argue with him, talk down to him. Some would say somewhat abusive to him. She isn't charged with that. He's flipping through more pages trying to find something he wants to read. Says he doesn't know where it is. He's looking at the defense table. I'll have to come back to that. But essentially what it says was, eventually he walked to the defense table and found it. He tries to justify this to the jury as trying to get things right because it's important. Someone can be mean and angry and hateful and intoxicated and still be abused. They aren't mutually exclusive. Eventually the victim, Sarah Boone, trying to fight back, became verbally abusive. While the victim has committed verbal abuse, it's important to remember, let me find it here, that they, Sarah Boone, are the victim. So even though Sarah Boone did the verbal abuse, she's the victim, pulled into a vicious cycle where they are trying to survive. Sarah Boone intentionally left George Torres, Sarah Boone intentionally left George Torres in the suitcase, which is an active battered spouse syndrome woman. She went up to her room, fell asleep, passed out. She didn't let him out due to fear of what he would do. Talk of force being used. Blocking an attack using physical restraint like a suitcase to block an attack, and he holds up like he's holding a suitcase. He gives that argument of preemptively grabbing a guy, restraining him at the bar before he starts a fight to defend another person, which he says is legal. He uses police examples. Suspect might have a firearm. Suspect reaches for the waist, and the officer fires. Owen says Dr. Warner about fight or flight. It's instinctive. She instinctively reacted to save her life or another. He holds up a photo of Sarah Boone's ear. I'm 63. I can't imagine that. Her father's not around. I need to talk about the case a little bit. I'll get back to it. And he points to the papers and moves them to the defense table. So for me, I think he realized he's losing or lost the jury, so he's going to switch up topics. The first witness for the state was Juan Torres. The first witness was a good witness for us. Their prosecution witness was a good witness for us. On the cross-examination, he said he could hear Sarah say, he's been choking me, he's been choking me. Juan Torres says that didn't surprise him. The family knew what was going on. The police knew what was going on. The neighbors knew what was going on. Pearl Walker came in here 80-something years old in a wheelchair. His words. Is there any doubt? There is no doubt, because during cross-examination, I was able to get Dr. Warner to even admit she suffered from battered spouse syndrome. She hadn't seen the pictures, the videos, seen it one time earlier this month. One time. She's going to start testifying about things she never said before she showed up in court. I don't think she was in imminent fear. Come on, this is a courtroom. Good thing you are here. It gets even worse that in this courtroom, objection overruled. That I was going to rise up and show these pictures to you. Yeah, I'm going to do that. They put her on trial for murder. But what did they say? Something to the effect of maybe George Torres is the battered spouse. Can you believe that? Yeah, I think everyone can. Now you know why we are here. Little boys learn early on that girls are different. You do not put your hand on a girl. You can't wrestle with them. You can't touch them. You can't kick them. You can't treat women that way. When you become adults, I don't care what she says to you. I don't care what she does to you. I don't care if she gets in your face. You do not have the right to hit a woman. No, sir. And I wrote something at this point. Statements like that are exactly why men, like George Torres, get abused and won't make statements to the police. Statements like that are why Sarah Boone felt so safe abusing George Torres, because she knew he would hold back. She knew she'd be believed. She didn't have to hold back. Sarah Boone knew she had all the power. I would go as far as to say that those statements James Owens just said, being repeated as facts for years, are why George Torres is dead today. In my opinion, you shouldn't hit anyone if you can help it. But there are always exceptions. Man, woman, child. If a woman you don't know runs up and starts beating or stabbing you in the street, is a man not allowed to fight back? If a school shooting is done by a child, should the police let that child finish before stopping them? No, they shouldn't. Got on a soapbox there. But I really hate that argument. I hate that argument. Because this, to me, part of what drew me to this case is, to me, that argument very well may be what George Torres believed. And it might be why he's dead. It might be why Sarah Boone was able to call the police and he wouldn't tell them what she did. And I wanted to get that out. What is the state attorney trying to do? Objection sustained. What evidence have they put on? What evidence have they tried? To paint Sarah as what evidence? Control, manipulated, are words they use. These aren't the 1990s, this is 2024. What's all these text messages? Why is that relevant? What are they trying to claim? Well, they claim that Sarah had threatened to kill him before. That's one. She provoked his violence? Isn't that what they have done here in this trial? Objection sustained. Abraham Moreno changed his statement. They took a statement where Sarah stated it was an accident. He knew George Torres from Philly. They were friends who would talk. And the state attorney notifies. Owen gets on his phone. Objection not to reading. Not an evidence. Approach. So 4.5 years, all I heard was Sarah, it was an accident. Then he came in and said that Sarah said she was teaching him a lesson. That's true. The officer says his story did not match. I'll give that one to Owens. That's what happened. The two boys that lived right next door, it came out in testimony that George Torres said the night before 2022, it came out in testimony that Sarah said the night before in 2022, George Torres dragged her, on the 22nd, George Torres dragged her down the stairs. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And the boys next door got their dates wrong. Their statements were taken on the 27th. They had time to talk before that. Sarah testified the night before and complained about that. There might be some implication that Sarah Boone got him in the suitcase and pushed him down, but the photos of the stairs shows it wasn't disturbed at all on the bottom. So, again, that is just he believes they must have been wrong. Owens does. But the state did have an argument about possibly the staircase where she had all the time in the world to rearrange things. And remember, there's the photo of George Torres sitting in the suitcase around 11:03. The neighbors thought they heard the banging at around 11. He wants to talk about justifiable use of force. We covered this, I think, in the States. You do not have to wait if you are facing in your mind, an imminent threat. Back to Sarah Boone. About the unconventional restraint. You have to think about her trauma, the drinking. It was all fun and games. George Torres chose to get into the suitcase. He voluntarily chose to get into the suitcase because they were drunk and being silly and stupid and playing hide and seek. When I guess you get so drunk, it sounds like a good thing. As you know, Sarah likes to videotape. Evidence shows when George is being videotaped, he is not going to do anything. If you think about that, videotaping is like her power. Now, here's the thing, right? But we don't have evidence he does things when he's not videotaped, like without provocation, as far as I'm aware. Because every time Sarah's like, oh, calls the police, George seems to always have marks. Physically, she is no match for George. When she gets a chance to have some control, that is what she does. When she videotapes, she can tell him what she wants. Got one to show you in a bit where George loses it, and of course we have the TV. Yeah, we're gonna get to that when what he cuts. He only shows a small portion, and I think it's very important what he edited and why he did it. Owens is quoting the suitcase video. For everything you've done to me, this is how it feels when you choke me. She wants him to feel how she feels. Uncomfortable, lack of control. If you can imagine, objection. I think you can determine she was crazy about him and couldn't be without him. Videotape tape gets turned off. 9-minute gap. 9-minute gap without video. On video, George is talking in a normal voice. He isn't stressed. If you can talk, you can. If you can't breathe, you can't talk. Or if you can't talk, if you can't breathe. One or the other. But either way, that's what he said. And they, of course, remember, it's not true. We know it was depleting oxygen over time. She doesn't know it will end that way. An old canvas suitcase. She thinks he isn't serious. Eventually, he gets angry. She gets angry. He says words. His hand starts to get out. She said his tone changed. You know the tone of your spouse. Sarah was hypervigilant. When I get out of here, I'm going to end you. His hand got out. She lifted it up to try to get his hand back in the suitcase. She shaked it. She picks up the bat, which was found in the same spot. She didn't try to hide anything. Pokes him to get him in, and it works. He has scratches on his back. The back of the suitcase has some metal bars for support when you were walking. I don't think that was brought up until now. She testified, you heard that she said she was justified. Let's talk about jury instructions. Reasonable doubt. He pulls out his printout on reasonable doubt and reads it. It's like the big blown up one. You have to have one reasonable doubt. Each of you can have a different one. Explains how it works and uses 2 printouts. He has quotes from one of the state witnesses. Battered women's experiences affect her perception of imminent danger, and victims of repeat violence may fear death in situations where others would not. And I'm interested if this is accurate because the state's witness seems really hard to say battered spouse instead of battered woman. But it's possible because Owens kept saying it. Maybe she slipped. Sarah kept feeling that fear due to George Torres. George Torres is responsible for Sarah's mental state. He talks of a second video. She isn't going to open that he threatened her, and she used that bat. She knows what he's going to do to me. I know him more than he knows himself. You don't have to wait. She used the bat to defend herself. She used the bat to defend herself. She went upstairs and called Brian Boone. She would often flee upstairs, passed out, fell asleep. I don't know. 2 big bottles of wine, unintentional. Remember that in the interrogation room. She was arrested for strangulation after he banged her head on the dryer on part of the floor with little carpet. She grabbed his neck, then he stomped on her eye. She was honest with the officers and they arrested her. She said, why? I was fighting back, so she didn't trust law enforcement anymore. Now, to me, this kind of makes the case that maybe Sarah, after beating George, realized she was screwed. Because if she calls the police, she would be arrested. She knew they would arrest her. She left him to die, not out of fear of George Torres, but fear of the police. If she called Brian Boone, she could have called 911. She didn't want to call 911. Even after finding the body, Brian Boone had to force her in person, right? The video of her talking to George was about dropping the case where she was defending herself and fighting back. That's the hostage-looking video. Sarah didn't know the law. She gets up. Brian is calling. She sees the suitcase. Objection sustained. She sees the suitcase. She gets her fiance out, tries to do CPR. She called Brian. Brian comes over. He tells her to call 911 and does CPR. She doesn't try to hide evidence. She's trying to save his life. She knows if she tells him she fought back, she will be arrested. It happened before. She lied. She lies. She's scared. Lies to law enforcement. She doesn't call a lawyer. He goes through her lying to police and detectives. She goes to the station. If she knew she would have been arrested, she would have gotten a lawyer. Objection sustained. Moved to strike. Stricken. She didn't have a lawyer. She didn't know the law. Didn't know she was justified. It's 2 hours long. She said not intentional. She said, I swear on my son's life it wasn't intentional. George dying wasn't intentional. When Sarah gets When Sarah gets drunk, she calls for help. When George gets drunk, he beats Sarah. How many times do we see Sarah call the law? And again, we saw a pattern where Sarah gets drunk, lures George over, calls the law, but she didn't call the law that night because she knew what she did wasn't justified even to herself. If she herself didn't think it was justified in her own mind, then what is this defense? Sarah said she didn't know this would happen. Owens tells a story about someone running a truck with no oil. And you don't know what you don't know. She didn't appreciate the danger. She said she has Lucas to take care of. She didn't hide evidence. Think the evidence is clear. He's showing injuries we've all seen before blown up. A law empowers an individual to protect their life when faced with a threat. That is what Sarah Boone did. Owens is digging through papers. She had to be a parent, had the house, the keys, the car, $1,000 a month from divorce. I want to bring in. George had a job. He was going to lose it soon. Not by his own fault. It was closing. George had a job. They never want to talk about the fact George had a job, though. Talk of Dr. Harper, where she's from. I don't know why he loves locations. Saw Sarah 9 times. Talked about how it takes time to get trust. I think her testimony was credible. Objection sustained. Owen explains he can't give his own opinion. The evidence shows her testimony is credible. He lists off what Sarah was diagnosed with. Talks about Sarah Boone saying for the neighbors to not say anything. And I want to say here, was that to hide the abuse or was that to get less complaints? because she was worried about getting complaints and having to leave. When Sarah gets beaten by George, she calls the police. She just wants him out. George never called the police. But George did have injuries on him and refused to implicate Sarah multiple times. We know Sarah also has called 911 over nothing. Remember the video with the pissing in the cabinets by the dog. Sarah is trying to present evidence. The state is trying to present evidence. Objections sustained, stricken. Owen says the state suggested Sarah physically or emotionally abused George, but she isn't charged with that. Everyone knew of the violence. Sarah Boone was loyal to a fault, even through the abuse. The prosecutor in the opening statement said Sarah Boone's mind, George Torres deserved it. He deserved to die. She loved that man. There's an approach. I saw Sarah with a smile, talking to her lawyer. Prosecutor in their opening said a bunch of violent nonsense. That's right here, gesturing to the photos. He's talking about the no contact orders introduced late. We know he destroyed the TV. His jealousy abused the dogs or threatened to do so. Sarah testified he was always around her. Part of his fear is that he would leave her for good if she had enough time away. She could do better. I don't think we ever got evidence proving a dog threat, right? George Torres knew he would lose control. He was willing to violate a court order to not lose control. That is George Torres. Sarah would message George Torres. Sarah kept his things so he couldn't leave even during the no contact order. She kept inviting him over, and if he didn't show up, she destroyed even his legal documents. Sarah believed she controlled George enough that she owned his legal documents. His ID was her property. His birth certificate was her property. She said that in a text. That's why the texts matter. Gives context. Lights dim. It is a small clip of their scene where Sarah was provoking him upstairs. This is where she woke him up. And when he got tired of being filmed, he tried to take the camera away. Owens cuts it where Sarah says she's going to scream bloody murder, and George says do it. Now remember, right after this, George explains that it's all on video. He did nothing wrong. And I would say at this point, if I was to make an argument, that George did flip a switch in his response. But his switch was flipped because Sarah started changing her voice to the one she uses with police and on the stand. And she knew what would happen. He knew that she could take the video after that, where she was pretending suddenly she's all scared in a new voice. She could cut that and try to use it to the police against him. That is my opinion on it. Now, remember, right after this, what did Sarah do? She continued to follow the man towards the steps, recording him and insulting him. Now it's the TV, which they made sure to not show the first part, because we have no idea how this started, because all evidence with the TV shows is already damaged. Sarah has a story for why it was destroyed. We don't have that verified. Owen says he has gotten to know Sarah Boone. Objection sustained. Sarah Boone is like any other citizen, equal justice under the law. She should be judged based on the battered spouse instruction. I hope I didn't miss anything. I tried my best. Sarah Boone fought back and survived. We hope you do her justice in this case and find her not guilty because the doubt is reasonable. I trust your judgment. You have the power and authority to right this wrong. Now we get to the state's rebuttal, which I do not get to fully finish in this segment. I'm going to do it after. My hands are feeling better. The suitcase is also now moved in front of the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, George Torres is dead because the defendant believed he deserved to be zipped up in a suitcase so she could make him feel how she felt when he cheated on her, when he choked her, and to hold him there as a captive audience, according to her testimony. Now he has to listen to me. Right out of the gate, there are credibility issues. Cheating, she says, means pornography. We saw cheating really means women. June 14th, the heated conversation about this woman in Facebook. That is what leads to his arrest on June 15th. So they're suggesting here that these were vindictive arrests. And it's why the texts matter. He is out there whoring, Candy Crush, all the bizarre things you find in her phone. She uses the legal system as a weapon sometimes. So Owens is trying to say, well, look, she calls the police. That means she's in the right. And the state's saying, or was she the aggressor? There's no denying they are engaging with violent behavior over nonsense, smashing TVs, calling police, and then looking bewildered and laughing and joking. The courtroom is a place for justice, not a suitcase. The reason we have a jury system is because the king shouldn't be able to incarcerate people at his whim, and it involved citizens making that decision. But the opposite is also true. We cannot take another citizen's life because he or she feels like it. That likewise requires a jury that is objectively reasonable for a person with reasonable prudence and caution. Battered South syndrome is not a license to kill. Past grievances, even being stabbed in the leg, so on and so forth, do not give her a license to kill. There are still laws in place for how this can be done in a justified manner, and he pulls up a jury instruction. However, the use of deadly force is not justified if you find that Sarah Boone used force to intentionally provoke the threatened use of force against her. The facts of the case are from her own mouth, and if she is to be believed, and we will explore her thoroughly, why you should disregard every bit of her testimony, from court to detective to 911 operator to the doctors, the most favorable light of her is she presented herself is that after a Sunday fun day where they were drinking outside, doing dart puzzles, arts and crafts, finally comes a time where they're going to play hide and seek, where he says, "Tag, you're it." And even though she's it, she goes upstairs, hides in the shower, eventually gets tired of being there, it's too cold, and comes downstairs. Sees Mr. Torres trying to get into the suitcase for this game, and the suitcase lid is flapping. Out of levity, she comes over and zips it shut. Whether it's 100% or enough for 2 fingers to get out, that is something for you, the jury, to decide. But there came a point where the fun and games were over, and Mr. Torres told her that, "Babe, I can't breathe. Sarah, let me out." This is all in video. We don't have to imagine that. At this point, she is using force against him. It is not justified. She is the aggressor under the law. What level of force is it? I can't breathe. No, it's not let go of my hand. Not don't touch me. I can't breathe. This is not different than 2 people who are buddies at the bar where one of the buddies are in a headlock and taps. George Torres was tapping and she ignored it. She was kind enough to tell you why, out of anger, which translates to hatred, ill will, spite, just like in that jury instruction for second-degree murder. She told you why. Him saying, "I can't breathe, babe," was to her a trigger. Not of imminent harm, but that her own words, this is the law. There are 2 paragraphs that solve this equation. Without getting a big whiteboard in college, scribbling Greek letters, it takes months to solve the problems. It's solved in 2 paragraphs. She is the initial aggressor. His saying, "I can't breathe." No different than a naked chokehold. She won't let go, and she told you it is because I want him to listen. This is my bully pulpit. This is how he made me feel in the past. She doesn't describe it as teaching him a lesson. That's exactly what she says. I want him to feel like I did in the past. I want to tell him things. Ladies and gentlemen, we can play semantical games, but that is teaching him a lesson. Therefore, we have to look at the other 2 paragraphs, because right now, plain as day, the use of deadly force is not justified in the threat of force she is facing. The threat of force she is telling you she is facing is him fighting up for survival, his sticking fingers out of the suitcase. That is a threat of force coupled with "I'm going to end you." She is the aggressor. She is the one using deadly force. If someone has you in a naked chokehold and they won't let go, they are justified to use deadly force against me until at least we are separated. He had every right to say what he said and to exist, to stick his hand out. He reads the statute about reasonably believing she was in imminent danger. He says, let's give her absolutely every benefit of the doubt, which you should. The state of Florida alleges she's committed murder. We need to look for anything you can find reasonable doubt, but reasonable doubt isn't imaginary force or speculatory force. Accepted all past history, accepted doctors. They're limited reviews because, you get to see more if you're the prosecution than the doctors. He says that either here or later. Because of past relationships, she is afraid if he gets out. Let's give her that. But has she exhausted every means to escape the danger other than using deadly force on George Torres? She did not use every reasonable means to escape the danger that she's now after provoking him. We presented to her, according to her, she didn't start walking and talking and calling 911. She didn't do anything if you believe that is why she called Brian Boone. If you believe that is why she called Brian Boone, made a phone call to Brian Boone. Due to past history, he ignored her drunken phone call. She created it. She started it. This is a weird situation. This is a suitcase or a box, or more aptly described as a coffin. If you secure someone in a box or a coffin, you can exert force that deadly force from a distance. Quick examples from movies. Star Wars. In the first scene, imposing figure in black armor, he picks a man up who he believes is responsible and chokes him to death. We all understand that's direct force. We need to understand the force she is exerting from the couch, and it continues once she's in bed. Later in the same movie, another co-employee insults his religion, so he chokes this person from a distance. Ironically, it's called the Force. And next movie, he's doing it from an office in different shifts. Force deadly can be from a distance. She hasn't exhausted every reasonable means to escape to something she's required by law. Not just do something, but everything. She did nothing. He reads the rest that Sarah stopped, but George resumed that didn't happen. She never removed her force. She is like Vader, choking him on the couch from the bed. She never withdrew that force. She never indicated she wanted to withdraw. She never offered to let him out. That didn't happen. It starts and ends where she was the provocateur, and there are her responsibilities. All right, so that's where I stopped. I stopped at Star Wars. I felt that was probably a good time. What do I think? I should probably talk. I think I told you some of what I thought about Owens. I think Owens was really not prepared. I don't know if it is old school lawyer vibes, but like shuffling through papers like that compared to the other people who are just so good and so clean and so crisp at what they're presenting the prosecution. I think Owens looked terrible. I think he should not have said the girls. I think that was a terrible idea. This is a mostly female jury, if I remember right. I think Owens bombed. I think he bombed. I really do. And I mean that. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. I got to go back and finish the prosecution. And I continue. A couple other things about the law. Second-degree murder doesn't require intent to kill. The state never suggested she tried to kill him. Why suggest something we don't have to? It isn't that Sarah Boone doesn't believe the suitcase can't kill him. While he says he can't breathe, a person of ordinary judgment who hears "I can't breathe, babe, Sarah," and his voice gets weaker 9 minutes later, you are on notice. Her words speak for herself. This is not out of fear. It was out of hatred and anger. Sarah said, "Fuck you," she didn't care. It is second-degree murder. She intended the act, so we don't have to prove the intent to murder. She intended to zip him up. That's manslaughter. The hatred makes it second degree. That 2-minute video is the textbook definition of depraved mind in Florida. You can't feel sorry because she's drunk. She's blackout drunk. She doesn't remember the videos. Her story, she can't be up in the shower and taking a picture 9 minutes before the video at the same time. That part doesn't add up. It's more like 20 minutes he's trapped in his coffin. A lot of her issues come from before George Torres. She talks about him like a child. The power dynamics speak for themselves. He was treated like a dog, maybe a dog that bites back. She berated him like no one deserves in that video where he wanted to be in bed with his fiancée. When does Mr. Torres get to decide what to do? He gives examples of her ordering him around. Suitcases downstairs for a week? What prevented them from donating it in their lives? The story of it being already down there is suspect. She says she took him on a trip, not we went on a trip. No explanation of the picture. She said in the trial she didn't remember. Retells Sarah's story between the videos. She said, he said, "I'm going to fucking end you" for the first time at trial. She didn't tell that to even her doctors. She makes the story change as she learned about self-defense. Sarah lied about being drunk, but she felt it the next day. You shouldn't believe anything she told the police. If you do the math, the alcohol was 2 times the legal limit, going off the rate that it generally dissipates, according to the ME. Essentially like that. It was 2 times the legal limit the night of the incident. Her memory is not accurate. She says, "I don't remember." I submit that when off script, she isn't truthful. She knew those women I mentioned, and he was cheating on her. Turns out it wasn't porn. He was cheating on her with women. And she was cheating on him with a guy named Ben. Past violence doesn't apply in this case. Owens objects. Objection overruled. Battered spouse has no relation to this case because she is the aggressor. Sarah cares how this case will be decided, obviously. You don't have to accept her testimony as true. The defense demonstrates using the bat and the suitcase, poking it, showing all the parts with the bat. He actually hits part of it with the bat, and you can hear it solid. He goes, "This is solid. You don't have to trust she put those bruises on him while he's in there." The evidence doesn't support it. You can conclude she used this bat outside the suitcase. You don't have to believe her when she says they were playing hide and seek. You don't have to believe she doesn't know the rules. She had all the time in the world to clean up the mess. She can't expect you to believe her testimony over 2 neighbors who aren't drinking that aren't affected by the outcome that night. They said it shook the wall. Sarah had no injuries, matching being dragged down the stairs. Energy to make a boom could be someone going down some or all of the stairs, in a suitcase or not. That is what the evidence supports. Something happened and then there was silence. They can say Juan Torres' testimony was great for the defense, but it was great for the state. It was great for the state. She was telling him. She was yelling at him. She was at 7:30 p.m. She was already on her bully pulpit. And you know she doesn't need to put him in a coffin to get on her bully pulpit. There's video of her ordering him around. You don't have to accept anything she said. How did he get the hematoma on his head? How did his mouth get bloody while in the suitcase? A 100-pound drunk woman isn't beating through whatever that suitcase is made up of that made that thump. She doesn't have the injuries matching going down the staircase, but he does. He has blunt force trauma all over him. Inconsistencies. I won't belabor it. Your dinner is waiting. In the back. Dr. Brandon is fantastic. He explained everything you needed to know about battered spouse. This isn't about one or both have battered spouse, but it does call into question the power dynamics of the relationship. On a video, you hear an officer ask him, "You're a guy. Why don't you do anything about this woman?" He didn't want to rat her out. He was her violent pet. Dr. Harper said she's a battered woman expert, but she isn't Sarah Boone's treating psychologist. 9 visits, and she never asked him what put you in fear. Ask her what put you in fear of imminent death or greater bodily harm. That is the crux of the matter, and the doctor never asked. She also didn't review everything you will have. We agree with Dr. Warner. It is her obligation to stop. Dr. Warner concluded battered spouse doesn't apply, so she didn't delve deep into it. Sarah didn't fulfill her obligation. He was fighting for his life to escape. Who knows what happened in the past? It is to call into question her credibility about the past. Owen says Mr. Torres knows not to do anything while videotaped, but then bizarrely shows a very edited clip of him slapping the phone, and he knew he was being videotaped. Learned helplessness. She controlled everything. His birth certificate is torn up when he doesn't comply. You will see more if you delve into the text messages, but I argue you don't have to, given that she's the aggressor. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a long 2 weeks, and you are making a very important decision for Miss Boone, Mr. Torres, and his family. She killed him. It was not justified under the law. She doesn't have a license to kill. The law requires her to stop using force when applied to him, and she didn't withdraw that force. You know what was in her heart: hatred. Follow the law. Nobody would want this life, but it doesn't change the law. She went upstairs and let him suffocate. Judge read the instructions to the jury, and the jury left. Everything but the baseball bat will be in the deliberation room. Defense objects about notes the jury has. Instruction says no notes trumps another note, so so it's denied. And the state and defense review evidence, and that's where I stop. So I am recording this. I'm going to combine this. This is going to be before we have a verdict. I don't know if we're getting a verdict tonight. We might have a verdict while this is playing. We might have a verdict while this is rendering. I don't know. I want the verdict to be a separate video. Thank you all for all this so far. A lot of new viewers. I'm kind of interested in maybe covering some other cases, although I feel like most of them I have to go back a while to play catch up. I've enjoyed it. It's a nice distraction from what I have been covering. But I'm going to say, not this weekend, probably. I am tired. I think I told you earlier, I'm getting sick. Someone I was around was sick and they didn't tell me. Hands ache, which was also a sign I had COVID every time, so that's not a good sign. But I've also been typing a lot for notes. So this weekend I'm probably just going to recuperate, drink a lot of water, not speak much, hopefully. I might do a couple videos here or there on the other topics I generally cover on the channel, if that interests you. I think that's about it. Now we wait for the verdict.